All right, from the shores of the North Saskatchewan River, right here in scenic Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, this is your host, Scott Roos, and you are listening to Down to the River radio show. And today, my special guest is William Wild Evil Genius Garrett Sale. Singer-songwriter extraordinaire. Garrett, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. I mean, it's awesome to have you on the line. I mean, given the modern streaming climate, that's sort of how I got to know your music, is just through random algorithms and things popping up, because a computer thinks that that's what I'll enjoy. And in this case, the computer was right, which kind of scares the shit out of me at times, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, the streaming thing is super weird, but it's worked out really well for me. And I mean, for my own music getting out there, but also for me discovering bands all the time. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I remember now, like really early on when the Pandora app was created. I mean, I would imagine that modern streaming services are sort of piggybacking on top of that sort of algorithm style listening and discovering type thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really good. I mean, like, I might get into like some weird African music or something, and then I'll start cherry picking the stuff I really like. And then my like feed is just all the good stuff. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, you kind of had to shop for records based on word of mouth or tape trading if you were a metalhead, or even just if the cover looked cool. You'd kind of blindly buy it. But now I would imagine now, like yourself as a songwriter, do you have to up your game because it's so easy to sift through scads and scads of different artists that are kind of doing the same thing within the same, ballpark genre?
Yeah, I've thought about that before, but I feel like good music, good art takes time, sometimes not time, but at least it takes high intention. And I think that there is some level of being able to like work the system or work the algorithm,
Yeah.
but it doesn't interest me at all to like play that game. So I don't think I'm shooting myself in the foot either. Like, I'm just going to continue to like do it the way I want to do it. And I think just, I have to believe that like persistence and like time and effort will pay for itself in the end.
Yeah, well, that's totally fair. And I mean, speaking of you doing things the way you want to do it, I mean, here, March 20th, your debut full length album, at least a debut in terms of, Sony, Push Ups has come out. And, it seems like there was a bit of a left hand turn in terms of the color palette and even the paintbrush that you're using. It's a bit of a change in direction, a change in sound.
Yeah, it was. And part of that was intentional from the get-go.
Yeah.
But part of it was just, I kind of have to, when I make music, I don't really do it for any other reason than that it's fun and interesting
Yeah.
and like exciting. And so, the sound that I had before this record, it wasn't any more intentional than this one was. It was just kind of getting in there and trying to get excited and have fun with it. And so I feel like if I consistently do that, my sound's probably going to consistently change. But I'm okay with that. I'm not really worried about, fitting into any type of specific sound.
No, and that's fair. I mean, speaking from a writer's perspective and journalist perspective, I think our habit is to try and, force art to sometimes conform so that we can accurately describe it. But I would imagine, there's a bit of a culture of maybe sometimes we like overthink it, and sometimes you just got to embrace the Tao of the whole situation and kind of just let it be and absorb it the way it was intended, perhaps.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I definitely like at times wasn't feeling inspired making this last record, and I tried to force stuff out, kind
Yeah.
of like the war of art, like work ethic mentality, and that just doesn't really work for me. It doesn't make good stuff. I kind of have to just live my life and try and maintain a posture that allows it to flow out. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, like be there to accept the inspiration when it arrives, and like diligently um, work through that, but not force too much.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, I think, with this one though, were you feeling a bit of pressure from the label or even just pressure on yourself? Because I know there was, some intentional, motivation, like had a rental house and you were in there and that was kind of going to be your time. And that's sort of almost, caused the opposite thing to occur, right? You sort of almost felt a block that kind of stifled your creativity.
That's true, yeah. And everything that I'm saying right now, like super confidently, would not have been able to say 2 years ago when I
Yeah.
first started making the record.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I definitely went into the record extremely confident, but it was also the first time that I'd had like a team behind me when making music, and like people were like excited about what I was gonna make. My team was, and
Yeah.
yeah, that definitely froze me up. And like I wrote some stuff and made some music during that time that I just was not connecting to. So I basically made the record twice. I kind of the original songs that I had when Sony joined the team were, I think two of them made the record, and there was like 14 at that point.
Wow. I mean,
So yeah, I did.
just as an aside, I mean, like, are those songs sort of completely disappeared into the ether? Like, would you ever think about, revisiting those songs again just to see if there was anything worthy of Garrett's sale?
There's a couple that I recently have pulled up, and I'm gonna probably do something with
Sure.
for like the deluxe album maybe.
Hmm.
But like I think I'm okay with letting them die because I've always been somebody like pretty much all the songs I've ever written are the songs I've released. I never really like filter out what I'm doing, and
Uh-huh.
so that was kind of my first experience at doing that, and I think it helped me. It helped me to like focus in a little bit on what I was wanting out of the songs and out of the sound of the record. So they're not
Sure.
lost on me, but they may never be released.
Yeah. Yeah. Now the record's called Push-Ups, and I know that there's a bit of a story behind that, right? I mean, I think, maybe there was the post Push-Ups Garrett sale and the pre Push-Ups Garrett sale that kind of have, had or enabled you maybe to take a bit of that drastic turn in a different direction. Am I right?
I think you're definitely right. There's definitely a well, when you say there's a pre push-ups Garrett Tail and a post push-ups,
Uh-huh.
that is that is somewhat true, but more so what changed was my perception of myself. But yeah, so to tell the story a little bit, I basically was experimenting with LSD,
Uh-huh.
and I had taken it a few times, very intentionally, like meditating and like preparing for a week before I did it each time. And the time I took it that yielded the name Push-Ups for the record, I was a little more negligent because I started to get comfortable, and I wasn't really in a super healthy place. But I took quite a bit, and I was by myself, which I don't recommend. Something like seven hits or something like that.
Yeah.
And towards the end of the trip, it was actually pretty great experience. It wasn't as mystical or like spiritual as the others because I wasn't necessarily looking for that.
Sure.
But towards the end, when I was coming down, I ended up doing some push-ups to wear myself out, which is something I kind of do normally, just like try to get tired for bed or something. And from what I can tell, I got a adrenaline rush, full-on adrenaline rush from doing the push-ups. I guess the drug was still in my system, and I basically was just thrown into a nightmare. And it wasn't like how it happens in movies or anything where the drug wears off and you come back down. I basically got pretty much stuck in a perpetual state of anxiety for about 6 to 8 months. This is right in the middle of making the record. So I think I was like 4 songs in maybe.
Uh-huh.
And then this happened. And I later came to find out that I was experiencing PTSD. And I wish I would have gone to the doctor sooner because he gave me some medicine that really helps knock it out. But
yeah,
the best way I can describe what happened was I kind of have always had some deeper insecurities, I guess, that I wasn't that would play out in my life, but I wasn't cognitively aware of them. And that trip and freaking out kind of showed it to me.
Yeah.
Like basically I probably like had some stuff in the closet, so to speak, that I needed to get out and shine light on, but I think I just kind of dumped the entire closet on my head at one time and, you know, didn't handle it super well, I guess.
Yeah.
But that became the obvious title of the record probably a year later, because anytime I would tell the story or anytime I would have like some kind of weird episode, I would be like, yeah, ever since the push-ups, it kind of signified this like really intense life changing moment in a good way and a bad way. I definitely would never take back the experience. I wish I could have handled it a little bit better.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it gave me a sensitivity to the world and to art that I didn't have before, and taught me a lot about myself. So,
yeah. Well, now was the record a bit of a catharsis for you to deal with that, you know, that sense of PTSD that you had?
You know, it actually, it wasn't. It kind of hung over my head pretty intensely. And that's when I was referencing like forcing stuff to happen before.
Yeah.
I felt like I really needed to get done with the record before I could like heal and recover. And so I was trying to like force out the record and just get it done. But like, obviously that's a terrible idea and isn't going to work. So, a lot of the songs came from moments where in between those times when I was like trying to force it out, and maybe I would break down, or a song would kind of like wash up on shore. So yeah, finishing it, I definitely, I guess it was cathartic in some sense, but not in the way that you would imagine, if that makes sense. Like it wasn't some escape at all. It was kind of like this overbearing thing. But working through it and finishing it was definitely cathartic. And I kind of feel like, you know, I finished the record like a year before it came out this spring.
Yeah.
Finished it last spring. And honestly, it took about that long to start to really understand what had happened to me and what the experience meant to me and what I'd learned. It's kind of
Yeah.
funny how when you're in the midst of something, you can't necessarily see it, but then it's like hiking a mountain. You're just kind of going uphill. You don't really understand what's happening, but once you get in the car and you're driving away and you see it in the rear view, you're like, whoa, we just hiked that mountain.
That's a great analogy. I did quite a lot of hiking in the mountains of British Columbia as a youngster, so I totally hear you on that one. Yeah, I was just thinking now, Garrett, like you're sort of describing a bit of a process here. I mean, when that light comes on for you, like how do you go about resolving it in terms of writing the songs?
I don't really, it's pretty rare that I have, well, at least on this past record, it wasn't really the case that I would have a specific idea for a song.
Uh huh.
It was more so just kind of showing up and allowing it to happen and then chasing whatever happened in the moment. And then like lyrically and conceptually, those ideas would kind of start to form in real time, but slowly. Like for example, Slow Records, one of the songs on the record is, it's a pretty like standard chord progression and it's like very droney. And that song came to be because, like I said, I was trying to force out a bunch of songs and couldn't make it happen. And I just had a moment when, I was trying to make some weird groove one day and I just was failing, I guess. And I had this thought of like, what would you do right now if you wrote a song for yourself and you weren't thinking about like trying to be musically smart or it be cool or trendy or something. And that's how that song started. And so that thought kind of paved the way for me to learn things about myself through writing those lyrics. I mean,
Right.
The first lyric I wrote for that song was, "Sometimes I feel better tethered to the dark." And so that entire song kind of became a support system for that one lyric and that idea of just, maybe I am melancholy. Maybe for some reason that feels like home instead of something else.
Yeah. I love the story of Holy Ghost, where did my life go? Because I mean, basically it was like, okay, you need to do something. I'm going to leave you for a few hours. I think it was your producer.
Yeah.
And when he came back, you'd only written one line. I mean, what was his reaction to you only having one line of song when he came back, when he basically like gave you that ultimatum?
It was kind of par for the course, honestly. My producer was Tim Friesen, and he signed up really early to work on the record, and he had, I mean, obviously none of us had any idea what we were getting ourselves into, but especially him, because he came into the picture when I had those original 14 songs that all ended up getting ditched. So he was there for the entire ride. He was there for me, not able to work because I was freaking out from that damn acid trip. And so he kind of became like a mentor in a way and helped me develop a lot more than actually just producing the record. So, that was on a writing retreat. We started going out of town to write just because like, I kind of figured, well, maybe if I spend some money on an Airbnb and like get out of town, it'll just like make stuff happen. Like we can't come back empty handed because then it would have been a waste of time. So let's just go somewhere.
Yeah.
But lo and behold, a couple days in to one of those trips, like we just weren't really getting anything. And I was just having a hard time putting down lyrics because I think all of a sudden, if I was going to say something, I had to really mean it on this record. And that put a lot of pressure on me. And I was kind of trying to like manhandle it in a way that just wasn't working. I just was frozen. And so, but anyways, yeah, he let me, he was like, okay, well, I'm going to leave and just write a song. And when I get back, we're going to work on it. And I was like, okay, I got it. I was very, set on making that happen. But I did not. I just had I saw him pull up, and so I was like, man, I need more time. And so when he came in and I didn't have anything except for chord progression, I just sang him, I need more time. But it actually like came out nice sounding and started that song. And that's one of my favorite songs on the record. So it wouldn't have happened if we didn't do that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a great song to introduce the record to the public for sure. You were mentioning now that there was an aspect of mentorship. I mean, can you maybe delve into that a little deeper?
Yeah. I had basically, up until the beginning of this record, basically made all my music in isolation, just by myself. Like, my community of friends, used to be, were not really musicians. And so music was kind of an escape for me. And I would set up studios in different places, and kind of like, I'm a little bit introverted, so I would escape and go make music. But that's a slow process of learning, kind of, because, I might try something a million times, and if I just had someone in the room, they could easily show me what to do, So when he came into the picture, I was very confident and excited about the record, but I slowly kind of lost that confidence just due to not feeling connected with the stuff I was writing and making. And so, I mean, a lot of stuff that he did, like, for example, one thing was he's in Atlanta, and he booked a week in Atlanta for me. And I came down, and he had like different musicians coming in every day. And we would just jam. And like, I haven't been in very many like jam situations. So like, he was basically just kind of like creating situations to like stretch me and have me learn, and like, I learned a bunch of production tricks from him. And
Nice.
I would say more times than not, our time together was just kind of conversating on art and what it meant for us, and what the place of music is in the world. And yeah, so, and he's just a great sounding board as well. But I can't thank him enough, because, I feel like anyone else would have like left me in the middle of the process.
Yeah, I pictured, I don't know if you've seen the movie Spinal Tap, but, the manager carries around a cricket bat, and there's one scene where he's so fed up with the band that he takes a cricket bat and he smashes the television set. I pictured, I don't have anything written, just a complete freak out, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, he wasn't intense. He was so sweet to me. Maybe too sweet, honestly. Like, it might have been better if he would have whipped me into shape a little bit. But yeah, no, he was super chill.
Yeah. Well, now, you mentioned different musicians coming in when you were in Atlanta. I mean, is that where the light horn section, the woodwinds, come in for the song Wound Up?
No, that song was one of the first ones I made, even before Tim came around. And I was just kind of messing around with some of my synths, and I wrote a brass line on the Prophet, and then ended up getting a friend here in Knoxville to play the sax part for that.
Cool.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite lines on the record, actually. I'm proud of it. I'm really proud of that chorus, because that one just started off as like a concept for, I had like a finger picking idea, but I was just like, I want the chorus to just be a massive swell that feels completely chaotic and like an abrupt stop from the song. And so, we just kind of built it up Um, and I have this big drum that kind of starts those choruses that I bought from a cop off of Craigslist. So that's kinda cool.
Yeah, I read about that. Well, now listen, Garrett, I mean, I don't want to keep you too much longer. I mean, it's certainly been great chatting with you. I mean, I guess I would be remiss if I didn't, say that, this record Push Ups, it drops March 20th, maybe days or perhaps even hours before essentially the whole world shut down due to COVID-19. I mean, how are you making out? Are you doing all right?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I gotta say, like, when that happened, it almost felt like par for the course because getting through the record was such a difficult thing for me, and I was so much looking forward to the release of the music and expecting it to be some type of internal, like, emotional release as well. Like, this is behind me, it's going to get out in the world, it's going to be great. And then once I realized that was happening, it was like, yeah, I'm not sure it would have happened any other way, right? Like, but honestly, it was kind of relieving in some ways. I mean, our tour got canceled, which is a big bummer, and probably most of the shows, if not all, for this whole year are canceled, which definitely hurts, sales and getting the word out there. But on the other hand, like, I'm really excited to be making new music right now, and in some ways it's kind of relieving to just be at home and to be able to offer a record to people in a time like this. Maybe someone's going to connect with it more than they would have. So
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the color palette and the overall vibe is a little melancholic, and it kind of maybe suits the quarantine sort of extreme isolation mood that a lot of people are in. And I think sometimes listening to that kind of music helps us, deal with tough situations, So I'm glad that Push Ups is out, and I've certainly enjoyed it. I mean, where's the best place now that people can go to just basically check out your music or find out more information about you, Garrett?
I would just send them over to Spotify to check out the music. And then also my website is williamwild.com.
Awesome, man. Well, listen, I really appreciated the time that you've spent with us here today on Down to the River, just chatting about your music and your process and your songs, man. It's been great, and all the best to you. And I'm looking forward to hearing more from you in the future for sure, man. Much appreciated.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Scott.
Yeah. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye-bye.